este sentido, saludamos a Katrinda Dudley, es estratega, portfolio manager de Franklin Mutual Investment. Katrinda, thank you so much for having us a few minutes.
Thank you for having me on the show.
We are expecting the next monetary policy meeting from the ECB. It would be this Thursday, and I wanted to ask you if the ECB could announce a rate hike stronger than expected this Thursday. Could we think about 50 basic points instead of 25?
I think the ECB is walking a very narrow tightrope at the moment. It's obviously facing the prospects of low growth that's driven by the war in Ukraine, the supply chain constraints that we've seen, as well as the energy crisis in the region. And they're trying to balance that low growth and not even choking it off further with the fact that inflation fears are rising. And even though we've seen a little bit of abatement in energy prices, inflation in the region is still very high. You've seen the Canadian Central Bank go with 100 basis points, and I think that that may result in the ECB leaning more into a 50 basis point rate rise rather than just 25.
In which way can the ECB provide convincing details of the anti-fragmentation tool this week?
There's been a lot of talk about the anti-fragmentation rule this week, and we are expecting something to come out at their July 21 meeting. In terms of how you measure success of that, they want to be convincing enough that you don't see that widening of spreads in those peripheral countries which have higher debt levels. If we look over to Italy's central banker, he said that any widening greater than 150 to 200 basis points would be significant. The thing about that tool, though, is it just needs to be a tool. It may actually never need to be implemented as long as the measures are strong enough. I don't think that the measures they announce are going to be as strong as do whatever it takes, but I do think it will be something that's stronger than the current policies, so probably in the middle of between do whatever it takes and the current ECB level policy at the moment.
And looking at the Federal Reserve, next week we will know its monetary policy decision. How fast should the Fed raise interest rates? Could we think about, instead of 75 basic points, stronger rate hike?
I don't think the Fed is going to do a 100 basis point rate hike like the Canadians have done. I think that given the print that we've seen on CPI, a 75 basis point increase in rates is all but baked in by the market, and that will follow with another 75 basis point hike. The Fed is watching unemployment. We've seen a small tick up in some of the employment statistics, and I think that that's one of their other benchmarks of their mandate, is they want to make sure that they don't, like the ECB, choke off economic growth, because the bank there needs to make sure that inflation is kind of in that Goldilocks range. It's not too high and it's not too low, and that's why I think they'll take things very slowly.
And finally, which investment opportunities do we consider considering this current market scenario?
We like areas of the market where there's lots of confusion and lots of information out there, and we think that people aren't able to, to defragment that. One area we like is the home building stocks. We think that the market is structurally undersupplied. We also think that existing home sales will continue to be low, and that's what's driving low sentiment in the real estate sector, combined with those the fears of higher mortgage rates pricing people out of the market. But we think that the first home buyer continues to create new families and will continue to need new homes, and the home builders will be there to build it. They've also been very conservative, so the book values aren't at risk this time like they were during the great financial crisis.
Thank you so much for this analysis. It's been a pleasure. Katrinda Dudley, strategist and portfolio manager in Franklin Mutual Investment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nosotros nos quedamos con